we're giving up way too much agency to these soon to be monopolies or duopolies. Like these players are too big. Power to the people. Let's open source, open weight this bad boy.
Welcome to Kickoff, where tech meets the road, where CTOs share the tales and the comments. So startups do big names, innovations unfold. How many CTOs will share their stories untold?
Welcome everybody to another episode of the How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast. My name is Brad Hefta-Gaub, and this is my trusty co-host.
Scott Porad, how you doing today, Brad?
I'm doing pretty well. Scott, how are you doing?
Good. How many tokens have you maxed out today?
Okay, so yeah, this will come out like a month from now, but I was on vacation last week for my honeymoon.
Oh, we forgot to talk about that.
Well, that's okay. We can say like, hey, I was on vacation for my honeymoon. It was a great time.
How was you went to Hawaii. I think we can
Went,
disclose that.
yeah,
Where'd you go?
we went to the Grand Wailea on Maui. It's one of our favorite little
Nice.
resorts. I haven't been there in a long time though. It's been like 15 years since we were there last. And so it was kind of felt like a fun little homecoming. It was mostly just hanging out at the pool, soaking up the sun, drinking Mai Tais.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to first ask if you were beach people or activity people. It sounds like you're beach people.
This time, this trip, we intentionally were like, it's gonna be slow motion.
Yeah.
We're not doing the active. I mean, normally I'd go do a bunch of scuba diving and we'd go, into towns and drive the Rodana and do all that stuff. But this time we both intentionally were like, no, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna be super chill, super relaxed. And so, yeah, it was hanging out at the pool.
So it sounds like you're pool people versus beach people.
Yes, that is. I mean, I like the beach. My wife, not so much. We
Oh,
we did
really?
we walked on the beach for the sunset a couple nights, so that was
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, did
that
that.
sounds great.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It was a great time.
Well, congratulations on making it this far. That's an accomplishment in and of
30
itself.
30 years. Yeah, it's a long.
Crazy. How's it
It's
feel?
it's funny. A friend of ours just is having their anniversary in a couple months, and he was asking me that, and I was like, it feels like both yesterday and also like time flies.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, time does fly. More
so
than half your life, by definition. For the rest, assuming you stay married for the rest of your life, it'll be more than half your life.
absolutely. That part I am looking forward to. The idea of 30 years is half my life, that didn't sound
No,
right.
it's not great. No, come on. 60 is the new 40.
60's the new 40. Exactly. Exactly. Anyway, so thanks for asking about that. Well, you asked me how many tokens I maxed out, and I'll tell you that the funny thing is I will say tuned out from all of the work life, right? I did do a fair amount of playing around and while sitting by the pool and with the Wi-Fi, I worked on some personal projects. So I mean, that was like vacation mode. So I was playing, but I did get one message from one of my teams that were like, "Oh no, our GitHub account says we've blown our budget and we can't use code reviews anymore." And I was like, "What happened?" Because this is one of the teams that is like I always tell you, they're like the super high performance team. They've got it all dialed in, and they actually don't spend that much money on token. They
Hmm.
all have like basically like they all have like a $200 a month stipend for whatever AI tooling they want, and they
Hmm.
pretty much that's all they use. They don't ever
Hmm.
there's never massive overages. But it turns out that like the budget that had been set on the organization-wide GitHub
Hmm.
was $50. And GitHub did like switch something where it's like they went from like all your copilots are included with your pro account to now you're paying per token.
Right.
And that happened literally like I think that happened like the day I was coming home from my anniversary vacation. And so it was like that was a little mini emergency. It wasn't that big a deal. I just said yes, pay for more budget on that. It's fine.
Yeah, what happens when people start using hosted models in their production environments and you get a version of like, let's call it DTOS, distributed token of service account, I don't know, whatever. For some reason you get a spike in usage on your
It's like a
account.
DDoS except for token.
someone writes a bug and all of a sudden it's looping through tokens, and all of a sudden you get a bill for $1 million
Yeah,
because you got to
right.
put circuit breakers in on that stuff.
You got to put your circuit breakers in. So, I mean, it was good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that Copilot was like, "Oh, you're over your budget." Like, okay, it was a $50 budget. I think we can increase that a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like I've been fighting a little bit of uphill battle when it comes to tokens.
Yeah, so tell me.
Now, I know there are people at my company, including other members of our senior leadership team, who listen to this podcast. Of our 41 listeners, a few of them are in there. And
I
so,
think we might be up to 60 now, by the way. There's at least 60 subscribers on the YouTube channel.
and so I might be getting myself in a little bit of hot water for this, what I'm about to say. Everybody in our industry is focusing on token optimization right now. Some high profile companies have come out and made big splashy changes about that because people were using too many tokens. I have a lot of thoughts about that. So I'm going to come back to the big company thing. Well, let's actually just go there for a second. First is, I think there were places that were measuring AI usage by how many tokens you were using. And so
Yeah.
then you had clever engineers who were figuring out how to use a lot of them.
Yeah, no, they weren't just measuring usage, but they sort of like gamified it and told their developer. I think there were some organizations that literally did like a token chart. It was like, who's the leader in usage of tokens? Well, I mean, that was asking for, right? Isn't there like the apocryphal story? I don't know if it's apocryphal or if it's actually a really true story. Like in India when the, British were, colonized that place, they like they had like a cobra problem, and so then they put a bounty on dead cobras.
Oh boy.
And so that worked for a little bit, but then basically because they were getting paid for the cobras, a whole bunch of people said, "Oh, why don't we breed cobras?" And so they were basically breeding cobras and then
I love it.
turning them in for bounty, and then the British, figured out what was happening, and they said, "Okay, we're not going to pay the bounty anymore." So the breeders just like released all the cobras because they was just like, "Oh, okay." And so
Goodness
it was
gracious.
like a policy that was just like a poorly thought through policy that then just literally came back to bite them.
Yep, no pun intended, or pun fully intended.
Yeah.
That's right. And then I also wonder, like I saw Microsoft, had a big announcement they were cutting back on tokens or whatever. And I thought, is this just a negotiating ploy with OpenAI, right? To put out in the press that we're going to stop using tokens so we can get a better rate on tokens from our token vendor. But that's not the uphill battle I've been fighting. There is in the water, there's a meme out there, not a meme in the humor sense, but an actual meme of, using tokens efficiently, all that kind of stuff. And I have been, without a doubt, in the minority at my company saying, forget about it. Just don't worry about, I don't think we should be worrying about the amount of tokens people are using. I think we should be worrying about, are we getting value from whatever we're doing? And there will be some point in time when we're spending a lot of money on tokens and we will need to say, hey, we need to dial this back. But we're not there yet. And I do not think we should be doing anything to discourage people from trying to figure out how to use this powerful new tool for good,
Yeah.
whatever you define good is for good. And I just think the sentiment that's in the air, in the water, not just at the company I'm at, but everywhere, is sort of poisoning. Poison is such a strong word, but it's sort of cutting off our nose to spite our face. Like we need all hands on deck to figure out how to harness the power of this thing
Yeah.
in both good and responsible ways. And we're sort of focusing in my mind on this very premature optimization, which causes me a little bit of heartbreak. And I think it's because it is money, right? And money is just very countable. It's a lot easier to count that than the benefit produced. So people
Yeah.
sort of naturally, and people can relate to money, like, oh, I'd like to have more of it. I'd like to not spend as much
Right.
of it. So
It's harder to
um,
relate to story points or even lines of code.
that's right. That's exactly right. So I don't remember how we started down this thread, but that's kind of where I'm at on the token maxing thing.
Yeah, yeah. So let me just see if I can play that back because I think that what you just said is kind of along the lines of my thinking as well. So what I heard you say is that like um we know that out in the zeitgeist there were companies out there that were like like incentivizing token maxing. Like it became
Yeah,
the thing, right? Token
right.
maxing was the
Hmm.
phrase, right? And there's now in the zeitgeist a pretty uh predictable backlash to that.
Yeah,
And I think it was maybe it was Uber that like the CFO said, "Oh, we burned our entire annual budget in the first month of setting it or something like that
right, right.
or some ridiculous thing like that, right?" So, and your perspective on that is we're in the venture that you're working at, that's not currently the problem. And so don't worry about that. Don't worry about that problem because you're a long ways from that happening. You didn't make the mistaken incentivization of saying you're going to get rewarded if you use lots of tokens. And so you're not
No,
getting that negative behavior. And instead, you're still like, hey, figure out how to use this thing. And we're not going to put roadblocks in front of you to while you figure that out.
yeah, but what's out there in the zeitgeist is sort of, infecting the culture at our company. People are already thinking about, oh,
Oh, of course. I've seen it being used. Yeah, 100%. People are using this as a, see, it doesn't really work. See, it just blows, it just wastes time and energy and money and water and electricity.
yeah, I don't even get that. It's just much of like people will be talking about something. It's like, well, we have to be careful how many tokens it uses. And I'm like, don't worry about that. I keep on saying, look, at some point, the finance team is going to come to us and say, you guys need to dial back the token spend. But until that problem occurs, like, learn, learn
Yeah.
as much as you possibly can. Like we talked about a minute ago, put in the circuit breakers so you don't actually like, you know, start something that, uses a gajillion tokens inadvertently. But we got to be learning. Like we do
Yeah.
not understand the power of this tool yet, and we got to be figuring it out.
Yeah, and it's funny too with the team that I mentioned that like this kind of was a little flare up for them, right? Like the scale we're talking about is such a small number, right? So this is like a team of five that's absolutely cooking with gas, and they absolutely represent that thought experiment that I often talk about of like every single developer on the team is generating at least 3,000 lines of new business value code every day, right?
Yeah.
And they're burning through the product backlog. There was like 2+ year product backlog that they basically have completely eliminated at this point.
Right.
And they were getting it done with $200 per developer and a $50 budget of shared across the org for code reviews, right?
It's
So
amazing.
I'm just like, this is not like literally. I was just had a team meeting with that team earlier today, and they were like, I don't understand how somebody can be using thousands of dollars of tokens. Like they're like, I'm already trying. We're working really fast. Like, how are you doing? How could you possibly be spending more than us?
Well, this leads to another thought, and I mean this a little tongue in cheek, but it might be true. At least Claude is not super clear on exactly how much tokens you're using or how much they cost and so on and so forth. And I commented to someone earlier this week. I was like, is it possible that tokens are just a hoax, like a totally phony thing? And they literally just made it up so that they can make their pricing opaque.
Well, I know tokens are a real thing, but well, okay. So here's one of the other things that I see happening so I would love to talk more about token maxing, but I want to make sure we mention like one of the pieces of backlash I'm seeing is okay, let's go local inference then. So let's basically not use the cloud providers anymore, and can we do the work that we're doing off of open weight, open source models?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing some really, really interesting things happening in that space.
I just had coffee this morning with an engineer who was just kind of telling me about what he's doing, and he's running it all locally.
Well, I think that the newest open weight models out there, I mean, I've seen some statistics that they're performing as well as like Opus 4.8, or GPT
Hmm.
5.5. So they're actually perform like the open source models are performing as well as like the frontier models. Now, maybe not as well as Fable supposedly was performing, but now that Fable's not available to anyone, it maybe, at least at the recording
Fable's
of this,
Fable's literally a fable.
Fable's literally a fable.
Here's the question, though. It seems like where this stuff is going is the model is certainly valuable, but it's like the harness around the model, the scaffolding around the model is a lot of the value,
Yeah, but
in terms of,
those are getting commoditized too.
no, I understand that. And so that's pretty interesting.
Here's my quick prediction. By the time that your finance department notices you're using lots of tokens, there will be
Yeah.
a perfectly valid, practically free open source version available to you.
Will it have the harness around it, though?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The harness is the harness. Like you can already point Claude code at
Well,
you can already point Claude code at an open router LLM, open LLM router that's pointing to your local inference. You can already do that.
okay, well, I'm just telling you right now, this is the first thought that came to my mind when you said that. Actually, I'm going to tell you the first and the second thoughts because it's the second thought that actually has my stomach a little in knots. The first thought was software is just becoming free. And the second thought was, ooh, what does that mean for my 401k?
Well,
Right?
first of all, just to be clear, I still, you know me, I'm still bullish on the fact that it's easier and easier to write the code, but that still means you need to know how to be a good engineer. So I
Yes, we
so so
talked about that.
it's funny. I've heard some other things about like, is the SaaS apocalypse really happening or what's going to happen there? And you got people like there's plenty of people in the SaaS space and other people kind of observing it that are like N no, it's still you still need engineers building stuff. It's not like any random company is going to spontaneously on their own with no engineering talent decide to create their own implementation of a CRM, right? Like,
Oof, maybe you got an ambitious guy in finance
right.
because
Okay.
we had that guy at TaskRabbit.
Did he make his own CRM yet with
It
Lovable?
wasn't a CRM. He made a sort of own vendor management system in Lovable.
And is it working for him?
Well, actually, he resigned to go work at an AI startup and took his Lovable app with him.
That sounds like a whole different podcast episode.
Totally. It's like,
Well,
um,
so,
well, hang
but
on. I want to go back here for a second. We were
okay,
just
yeah,
talking, the SaaS apocalypse. I still think you need someone to talk to customers and find out what they need.
yeah, of course. There's so much to building software than just writing the code.
Yeah, that's something I've been in a little tussle with some people at TaskRabbit about is we're trying to set some goals about, velocity, and they want the goal to be, cycle time. We want to improve our cycle time, which we do want to improve our cycle time.
That's a good
Shout
thing.
out, shout out to my team, by the way. Cycle time is like 30% improved year over year.
That's pretty good progress.
It's something like an average ticket was taking us 10 days. Now an average ticket is taking us 7 days, kind of thing.
Nice,
It's pretty
nice.
sweet. Yeah, it's awesome. And I've been kind of trying to say, like, yeah, but that doesn't really capture what you're looking for. You want to know like delivering value to customers. And
Yep,
there's all this other stuff that like slows things down, like prioritization, clarity of requirements, dependencies, overloading the team, all this different stuff. And I actually there's a project that's going through right now that everybody's really frustrated by because it's been taking a long time. I'm like, look, cycle time on this is fine. When the engineer works on it, it goes real fast. It's
yep,
just there's all this other stuff. He's waiting for other people, et cetera, et
yep.
cetera. You actually need to capture this end-to-end thing.
By the way, I hear you on that. And one of the things that I think that I've been coaching teams that I work with on in regards to that is like more get more essentially accountability to the builders, right? Like let the builders free. And like you could do that either by like letting your developers like own more of the product pieces. Like get like a common roadblock I see is like the developers ready to code, but then they have questions and the product owner has a hard time getting back with them or something like that because maybe the
Mhm.
owner is getting pulled in a different direction. And so one solution is like, hey, just like let the developers in this case or whoever you're going to give the building responsibility to let them set them free, like let them really run with it, right? Another solution to that is like change your org so that you have like these tightly bundled units that always have a product decider and a developer and a designer. I think you've mentioned this idea, and that they're a team that like they're autonomous and they're able to get stuff done, right? Like to me,
Yeah.
that's the answer to that, and it's not that has nothing to do with AI. That just has to do with the fact that as we've talked about in the past, it's like it used to be that code was the slow part, and so it gave you time to solve problems or
Mhm.
sort of answer questions. And now it's like, no, no, that's the fast part now. So now you got to be ready to know what you really want, and you got to be answering those questions quickly because you're gonna be able to crank out the code very quickly.
Yeah, one of the most talented engineers that I've worked with ever, I happen to be working with now, said something. He said, the product management part has always been the hardest part of what we do.
Hmm.
It's just being exposed because the as the cost of building the stuff comes down.
Yeah.
That now we ran a cool experiment at TaskRabbit a couple of weeks ago. Um, I really am super excited about it. I need to get more people to adopt doing this. Let's just call it pair programming,
Hmm.
but we need another word for it because somebody's already taken that brand name. There was a moment we're having this meeting. Somebody's like, "Hey, is the requirements document ready for this feature yet?" And someone was like, "Oh, it's not it hasn't been written down yet. Abby has it all in her head. She just has to write it down." And I kind of just like I don't know how I guess through just force of will, I was like, "Hey, I got an idea here. Could we just get Abby and the engineer who's going to work on this, who I think was a guy named Evan, but it might have been a guy named Jared. But I was like, could we just get Abby and Evan to sit down with SpecKit and just skip the whole Abby writes it down and gives it to Evan step? Literally, I just want them to sit at the same computer, ideally with Abby typing, and go through the SpecKit process. And she can get it right out of her head, right into the spec that AI chews up.
How'd that work?
I got positive, worked really well.
Nice.
If you've been through SpecKit, the first chunk of it is what are your personas? What are your user stories? What are your acceptance criteria?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, which is, I mean, extremely valuable to building good software.
Yeah.
And I think it streamlined the process. And at least I asked Abby, and she was positive about it. She kind of gave this. We had a channel in Slack, and people were saying how it all went. And I was like, I'm not quite tracking here. Are you like saying this went well and you'd like to do more of it? Or are you just like reporting how it went? And she said, no, it went well. I think we should do more of this. So I appreciate you, Abby and Evan and Jared, for doing that. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't actually know if they're listeners, but they should be. They will be now. So, so I think that's the future.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of value in that. I think that like that's kind of like if if those responsibilities live in multiple people in your organization, then get them together and act and have them act at the moment together because that's going to make the biggest progress.
Okay, here to me is the most profound thing of this AI revolution. I lived through the Agile revolution. And I got really, really into that stuff for a while. I was going to conferences. I got to meet a bunch of the people and talk to a bunch of people who signed the Agile Manifesto. One of the coolest conference sessions I ever went to was called Agile by the Old Timers. And it was just a Q&A with three people who had signed the manifesto. I only remember the name of it was I think it was Ward Cunningham, Ken Schwaber, and I forget who the third person was. It was a woman, and I forget her name, which is a little embarrassing. But it was just fascinating to hear from them firsthand. How did this come about?
Yeah.
This thing by that time, like it was sweeping through the industry, and um, it was just really fun to just hear firsthand how it came about. And anyway, the point I'm getting at here is I think AI is bringing us closer to the promise of agile software development than ever.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Like, hey, sit down here with your customer, with your
Yeah.
client, ask them what they want. What do you want it to do? Who are you? I am a
Yeah.
user. I'm an accounting manager. Okay, as an accounting manager, what do you want to do here? I want to reconcile these bills. Why do you want to do it?
Right.
So that my accounts zero out at the end of the month, right?
Right.
So like, I just as someone who for say 5 or 7 years totally nerded out on that agile development process stuff, I just think it's pretty cool that it can kind of maybe bring some of that stuff really to life. I mean, I've been on lots of teams that have done, weekly sprints or biweekly sprints and had weekly demos and shipped software every week and really did it by the book and really did a great job with it. But for a lot of teams, they don't, right? It's really just kind of a 2-week planning cadence and a very waterfall
Right.
situation. And I think this will make it easier to do it in a more iterative fashion.
Well, it's funny that you say that. First of all, agreed. And then second, what I'd say is that I do think that I've seen a little bit of a backlash against SpecKit, or not SpecKit specifically, but SDD kind of more broadly speaking, by people who are advocates of Agile, where they say like, hey, the sort of like overemphasis of knowing exactly what you want ahead of time feels more waterfally than agile. And so it's interesting that you actually are calling it out as an example of a tool to help us do agile right. And I've
Hmm.
actually seen other folks that have had a little pushback. I think both can be true, because I think that the pushback I've seen is a little bit of the thing that you and I've talked about in the past, which is one of the parts of agile is you want to be able to get enough that you can criticize. You want to put something together enough that you can like, you know, interrogate it and criticize it. And so if you spend a lot of time and energy up front trying to like be polish your specification, then you're slowing down your ability to get something up and running enough that you can interrogate it and criticize it. Right. And so it's this balance, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can do use SpecKit iteratively, right? Each
Sure.
step along the way can be a little spec. I think if I understood the purpose, what this is my interpretation of Agile, right? It was a response to the fact that the software we're building is not what people want
Yeah.
and it doesn't work.
Right.
So,
Doesn't solve the actual problems that the people have.
well, that's the first thing. But the second thing, when it doesn't work, like it actually doesn't function, like it doesn't compile,
Mm,
it doesn't work, right? And so, okay, let's do this thing that's very iterative where we show it to people frequently to see if it's actually what they want. And we deploy it frequently at the end of every sprint so we can verify that it works,
right.
right?
That's fair. Yeah.
And so to me, that's like that was a response to whatever was happening before, where we were building stuff that didn't work and that wasn't what people wanted.
Well, I
And
remember those days, right? Like early on before, I mean, in my career, it was like, like building Windows software or something like that, right?
mhm,
Where you have like, you know, nightly builds, and then the build
mhm,
comes out in the night, the day, the morning you get your build and like literally you could have developers who broke the build, like they somehow checked in code that like broke the build. And
yeah,
you get the little dunce cap that you walk around and give to the developer that broke the build, the build
mhm.
buster, you
The
know.
build buster, yeah. I
And
experienced both dunce caps and build buster stickers.
yeah.
Right. So I hear what the agile with a critic, someone saying, well, it doesn't, you have to do this upfront stuff. But like, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can get that iteration loop
Tight.
really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, really tight. You know, not a week or 2 weeks, but like, okay, let's talk for 45 minutes. Let this thing do its work and come back in 45 minutes and see what it's like. Or you can
Yeah,
get real
totally.
rough. And if you combine that with some of the stuff you talk about, of course, which is ephemeral, like review type environments and continuous deployment and all that stuff, like I would imagine the right team, the right environment, the right product. I mean, you can go blazing fast.
Yeah, so basically we have another violent agreement here. We're not going to argue on this one.
And blazing fast is actually like what you've talked about with one of your clients who has gotten to the end of their product roadmap. And it's like,
Right.
what else do you want us to make for you?
Right.
Like, and actually it gets back to the thing we're talking about. It's just shifting the bottleneck upstream, which
Yeah.
is like, well, we need more product managers and researchers and designers to go out there and figure out what it is that people want.
And I would argue that that's the piece of the case that you're making for like the pair program. It was not pair programming.
Mhm.
It's like the pair agiling,
Yeah.
where it's like make your product owner and your developer like right there, make them a unit that they're collaborating together and as soon as the implementation is done, you're ready to move on to the next thing. And this is where I do think that what you're going to see in like smaller and smaller, like I just saw, okay, just today I saw something on LinkedIn. It was like, uh, you know, a a recruiter saying like, "Oh, if this founder's trying to hire a CTO and they're demanding that the CTO needs to still be coding," and
Mhm.
there were, this big, huge debate about that. And the thing that was interesting to me about that is that I think that AI is going to do that same type of thing where it's basically, you've seen these other things. We're not going to have managers anymore. Everybody needs to be a doer, right?
Mhm.
And so this idea that like you should be able to be builders, like you should everybody, like everybody on your team, you put your systems in place so that everybody on the team really can be builders. It's going to cause you to basically be able to build really a lot of things really quickly. And so now it's like
Okay.
the
I
question then turns into like, do we know what we're building and why? And what's our
Yes.
plan for that?
I think there's this thing that's definitely out there. People have this idea. I've heard the expression, the alpha is going to flow to the builders. Do you know what I mean by that? The
Yeah.
alpha?
Yeah. Well,
The
like
We've talked about that
where's the
before?
value going to go?
Right. And so I think I've heard people say this and they think the value is going to go to the people who can build. But I have a different point of view, which is the value is going to go to the people who can figure out the right thing to build.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on that.
I think it's really exciting for a lot of people who never were capable of building before because they either by as a result of talent or training they didn't have software programming skills. Now it's really exciting and they say, "Oh, I'm going to be able to build and do my own stuff. I can create all sorts of value." But I think they're really missing it. That's definitely out there, and I think they're really missing
Well, again, like we're going to be in violent agreement on this. It's going to probably be hard
it.
for us to get a debate going,
God,
but
we have to find something we disagree on.
I think that I think that the challenge here is, as you've said, do you know how to figure out what is worthwhile to build? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of some people talk about that as the taste, Do you have good taste?
Hmm.
Um, and then you and I have also said, and I know that I feel very strongly about this, that this tooling that's out there today is not really good enough yet to make sure all the engineering I's are dotted and T's are crossed
Hmm.
for security, performance, that stuff. And so you still need a fair amount of expertise and wisdom applied, or at the very minimum, I'm a strong advocate of um, build the scaffolding around the vibe coders. Build all the engineering best practices scaffolding around your builders. And then you can start to trust that what they build will not bring the whole site down.
That's right. And yeah, you know what? Okay, can I tell you what I think the final frontier is going to be?
Sure.
Software getting a lot cheaper. Let's imagine we can figure out the product management problem and we can have a crystal ball and figure out what needs to be built. I think that's a problem that's not solved. I personally experienced that problem. I'd love to do, a little side project to have something going on. I've done that before in my career. I don't have anything going on right now. And I think it'd be fun. I don't have an idea right now. I don't even know how to get an idea anymore. I know just how to shoot down my own ideas. But let's say I had one. I think the final frontier is what I will call distribution.
Sure.
Let's say I had a crystal ball and I found the thing people wanted.
Yeah.
How do I get that thing in front of those people efficiently, cost efficiently? Because
Yeah.
attention is so divided right now, whether it's advertising, social media, whatever. Like, how do you break through and get in front of the people that you need to get to? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here. I guess the answer is you just do those things, right? You buy advertising, you do social media, you sponsor social media, you do PR, you you do community, and you just do all of it,
Yeah.
right?
I think that one of the theories I've heard out there is that like creators who are already trusted brands, like this is like an argument that the brand is what matters. The brands can bring out any product, and as long as they
Hmm.
are consistent with their brand ethos and mission, then they're the ones that are going to be trusted by the consumers to
Yeah,
buy
that's
it.
right. And that's just, essentially influencer marketing. That's what
Yeah.
you're doing, creator influencer marketing. Yeah. So I don't know. It seems to me like that's the final frontier of all this like whole industry, which is like, okay, everyone's can build it for free. Everyone's gonna have AI that can go out and talk to customers and figure out what to build. But like how do you I guess we should just give up.
Well, I
Just call it a day. Do you remember Professor Falcon?
Wait.
The movie War Games with
Oh
Matthew
yeah,
Broderick.
right.
He just
The
gave
only way to win is to not play.
exactly, exactly. And he just gave it up and he went out to his island retreat and was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, I'm
You
not
know,
there. I'm still definitely very bullish about the idea that like I'll just repeat. I think that like the people that have ideas, I agree with you that distribution will be a piece of it, but the people that have ideas will be able to build those ideas. If they have good scaffolding around them, those ideas will be built in a way that is uh appropriate and secure, etc.
mhm.
And and then yeah, there's distribution. And I think that, one of the theories that's out there is that there are a whole bunch of smaller niche needs that were not practical to build before, but now they're practical. And so if you can reach the people that have that need, then those are the people that you'll be the one solving it for them. And there's a viable way of doing that.
That's what I mean by the final frontier. Okay, so like, let's say you need some app for some very specific purpose. I'm going to give you an example of that specific purpose.
Yes.
I snore.
Oh yeah.
It's a fact. I have to admit it. I've never heard of it. I've never heard
You
it. I
you
just
never heard it. People tell you about it.
people tell me
It's funny.
there.
You never really hear your own snoring, do you?
Yeah, there happens to actually be one person in particular that tells me about it quite frequently.
Let me guess.
And it has become an issue actually between us. Not a major, well, I think, well, I was going to say not a major issue, but depends on who you are in this equation. So my wife treasures her sleep. She's a person who needs sleep, and I've turned over the last 5 years into a real snorer. I don't know how it happened. And sometimes I wake her up and sometimes I keep her up. And that really bothers her, and then it just leads to all sorts of dysfunction. I'm like, oh, I had a great night's sleep, and she's like, I want to kill you right now, right? Okay, now I got an app. It's a phone app. Obviously, it's a
Hmm.
phone app, and you just put it next to your bed, and
It scores your snoring.
that's exactly right. It listens overnight and it scores you. Okay, now my wife is a little bit of a snorer. I get apparently I'm just like really sawing logs in there, and she's more just like a little snores. And so I was like, well, I wonder if it picked up her snoring too.
So you
I
want to,
see.
if you had a particularly bad snoring night, you want to try to blame her. Well, that was your
No,
snoring, not mine.
not especially, but you do need to disambiguate that. So I thought, well, there could be an app where we each put our phones on the bedside, and if they're both running, they can use some sort of, I don't know, sound. You could
Hmm.
probably figure this out. You're a digital audio guy. They could use some sort of sound differential to like
Hmm.
figure out whose snoring was whose.
Yeah, for sure.
The only point I'm trying to, so that was literally, I got the app, I got the snoring app last night. I used it for the first time last night. I scored 55 out of 100. And I'm not sure if I'm trying to get more or less points. I have to go back and look that up. But
I
but then
think
I
it's less. I
thought
think
this
you
little
want
problem,
less in this one.
and I thought of this app idea that I'm just described to you, which is
Hmm.
we could have two of these. But the point I'm getting at was what you just said. If you can find a problem and reach those people, then you can have a software product. And reaching those people, I mean, you have to reach the double snorer. What do those ads look like? Do you and your partner snore? Might it have also been the dog? Do I need a third app in our room for the dog who also sometimes does little cute little dog snores?
Yeah.
This is getting over the top now. To buy
Man,
my dog his own Apple Watch?
it's funny that you say this. I'm pretty sure that like in there's also a fair amount of like I watch like streaming news, so I have like Sling, and so I'm watching the news is like on my TV via Sling, and I've noticed that I get targeted ads that are very clearly targeted, like they are 100% IP targeted to me based on like
Yeah.
my internet searches, and it just cracks
Mhm.
me up how far how far that's come. I feel, of course, like
Oh,
partly to blame for that as helping invent behavioral ad targeting back
uh,
at the turn of the millennium. But
I'll tell you what was very, very visceral about that for me. The day I turned 50,
got your
my ads
you,
changed.
you got your AARP letter in the mail.
Well, there was that, but like as instantly online, the ads I would get online were different. Your 40 to 49 segment, when the person's going in there and clicking 40, advertised a 50 plus, suddenly I
Hmm.
was getting different ads. I mean, it was like overnight.
There you go. This is a long. How did we? This is a pretty long and windy road. How did we get from token maxing to AARP and cruise lines and erectile dysfunction advertising?
Just we were talking about the end times.
All right. Well, here's my question to you. Here's my question to you.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
My question is, I want to talk a little bit about, are we going to get like, are people going to be running away from these, you know, AI frontier model labs because of either pricing, or the other thing is wanting local inference so they can have privacy and they can be not be controlled by the man. In other words, and I don't mean like controlled by the man, like, guardrails around bioweapons or something like that. Like, of course, I think I'm obviously a supporter of those kinds of guardrails. But I mean like, I was really set back by the Fable basically saying like, oh, we're gonna like change. We went from zero data retention to now like we're gonna keep 30 days. And they also were like, in the back end, they were running a classifier that basically decided if your query was allowed to use Fable or not. And if it wasn't allowed to use Fable, at first when they rolled it out, they were silently dropping you down to Opus 4.8 without telling you, but still charging you the Fable rates for it. Like, there's some
Ooh.
super shenanigans going on there. And I'm like, this is like that to me, that was the klaxon blaring of like, hold on a second. Like we're way allowing, we're giving up way too much agency to these soon to be monopolies or duopolies. Like these players are too big. Like this is power to the people. Let's open source, open weight this bad boy.
So the answer, your question is, do I think we're gonna, what is your question? Do we just think we're gonna see more of the open source usage? Or are we gonna,
Yeah, are we going to see like, you know, people fleeing the big providers to go to run it themselves, to essentially democratize this?
I don't know if I would use fleeing. Here's my take, having thought about this for about 90 seconds now. I think we'll see three different types of pressure as CTOs to move away from the main big models. One will be financial. That'll be CFOs saying, hey, got to dial those tokens back. And I heard from my friend that you guys could run your little models that you have over there, whatever cute engineering stuff you guys do, you guys could do this on your laptop and save us a lot of money. So like, I think that'll be one thing we hear.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of that coin is, to me, that's the same as the colo versus cloud hosted argument, which is like, yes, it would be cheaper to do it on our own, but we'd have to maintain all these servers. And so the total cost of ownership is more expensive. So I think we'll get pressure to use locally hosted models, um, but people won't be accounting for the cost to maintain those things. That's one vector of pressure. The next pressure I think we'll see, we'll get some of the free from the man, right? I think that'll come more from the individual engineers. To me, that's more of a political axe, like people saying, I don't want to have my stuff owned by the man. But there will be, I think, in some areas, privacy concerns. But I don't think like just for
Well,
coding.
well, let me throw this. Okay, so let me challenge you a little bit on that one. Then maybe we might actually be able to get into an argument here.
Can I just throw out the third one and we can come
Yeah,
back
sure.
and
Third one.
challenge this for context? The third one is what I would call, the small language models.
Yeah.
I think there will be vendors who come along and say, look, we've got a much more cost efficient model for coding because we've just tuned this thing. You're a Python shop. We've got a Python coding model here. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to, these generalized models are so expensive because you can ask the same model, how do I tune my guitar? And how do I write this software program?
Yeah.
And who won the Olympics in 1948, right? Like
Right.
you can ask this thing anything. And so that, someone's going to come along and say, here is the Python programmer's model.
Exactly. And
And
it's
they'll be
faster and cheaper and yeah.
faster, cheaper, and
And maybe
hosted.
and maybe even better performance. Like not just
Yeah.
speed performance, but may actually be better at if you really tuned it on Python, it may actually be better at Python, less likely to
Yeah.
hallucinate Python.
I think there'll be some pressure there But that'll be challenging because then we'll have to go sell this to our CFOs and say we want to buy this special model, and they'll say, "Well, what's wrong with Gemini?" Right?
Yep.
And so, and then so that's the third one. But then the one where we think is interesting has to do with the local for like privacy security reasons,
So
which
let
is
me make
interesting. I want to
let,
hear your take on that.
let me give you the scenario where your CFO might come to you and ask you this question.
Okay.
Hey, are all of our intellectual is all our intellectual property going up to Anthropic? I'm not or OpenAI. I'm not 100% sure I trust them to not use our intellectual property against us.
Right. Right. Well,
And
supposedly our enterprise agreement with them says it's not.
and then with Fable, they changed that and said we're going to keep it for 30 days and there's no opting out of this even if you have a DPA with us.
Mm,
Now, their reasoning was around, this thing is so good, it's cybersecurity, we want to make sure nobody's using it for illicit purposes.
hmm hmm
Okay, but that's a hold on a second now. You're who's watching the watchers, man? Like,
Right.
right? Like you're the one that gets to decide whether my query was a invalid use of cybersecurity, like maybe I was just trying to vet that my software didn't have a security hole in it.
hmm
Or maybe I'm on the red team and I'm doing ethical hacking as a red team member, trying to make
hmm
sure that my internal software is secure.
I mean, the same could be said of the Facebook algorithm, right? Like,
100%.
yes, yes, real, yes, yes. The answer is yes to your thing. I can see that. I would see it more come from the legal department than the finance team, but like, yeah, like that's a real concern. It's already a concern I have because the one thing I've tried to impress upon our team about, we want a lot of experimentation with AI tools, but I've really tried to impress upon them like, hey, we buy this tool or whatever, it's too expensive. That's a two-way door. But if people start putting our data in here and we don't have the right agreements and this company isn't trustworthy or they leak it, that is a one-way door. We cannot get that back. And I mean, it's interesting what you're telling me about Fable. I wasn't aware of that. But I can see for overall for that concern, like we just do not trust that we can keep our data safe. And then I could see it even getting pushed further, like so TaskRabbit has partnership agreements with vendors. So not vendors, I mean partners. So like for instance, we do deliveries for Best Buy, right? You go into Best Buy and buy a big flat screen TV and say I want it delivered. Well, really, it's someone from TaskRabbit coming to pick it up and bring it to your house. And a lot of those partnership, not a lot of them, pretty much they all ask us to attest that we have some sort of cybersecurity.
Yeah, they have DPA, you have DPAs with them, just like you would for, yeah, of course.
And they want to see a SOC 2 or an ISO or whatever, right?
Yeah,
And I could start to see a world where they're saying, hey, our data cannot go in anybody else's models.
100%.
That stuff's always, at least in the partnership space, it's always fuzzy because it's like, whose data is this really?
Well, and I think that like I guess that's the other piece of this that I'm saying that I am predicting that there's going to be more backlash on this in this regard.
Yeah,
I think
I can
that
see that.
like there used to be a hey, it's worth the risk because the frontier model like I trust Anthropic. They're the good guys. Or I trust OpenAI. Or there's this notion of like, oh, the agreement says they're not training on our data as long as we have a subscription with them, right?
hmm
That's what the agreement says. To
hmm
people starting to challenge that and say, you know what? Now that I can literally run an open weight model locally that I fully air gap, that I know is not ever sending anything outside of the machine it's running on, right?
hmm
Like it absolutely is not sending it anywhere. It is only on premise on that device. I think there's going to be more and more pushback of being like, well, why would you ever give that data away?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I hear what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're laying down, which is I always think about what changes the dynamic of an industry, right? Like there are often certain players who they make that decision, like we don't want our data to be safe, and then they're big enough gorillas in the industry that they can start forcing other players to the
Like
ecosystem around them to
state of
change.
state of Texas buying textbooks.
I wasn't thinking of that. I'll tell you the example I was thinking of, and it's interesting. It didn't come true, and I was kind of surprised that it didn't come true. I'm not trying to get political here. I'm just using this as an example. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, the marketplaces for insurance. I was always puzzled why. So the way those things work is if you're a company of over 50 employees, you have to provide insurance. Otherwise, if you're under 50 employees, you have to go into the market, you send your people into the marketplace. And I never understood why it was that way. I didn't understand why the biggest companies in the country, the JP Morgans and the Microsofts weren't just like, this healthcare stuff is a headache for us. How about we just give the money to the government or the employee or whatever, and they can just go in the marketplace and deal with it, and we can just wash our. I mean, how many people do you think Microsoft employs to manage their healthcare benefit program?
Right.
Right?
1,000 at least, probably.
Exactly 1,000 at least. I never quite understood why big businesses didn't actually push the Affordable Care Act to include them as opposed to exclude them. Right? And then I read this article in the paper one day, back when we read papers, by the way, that Walgreens had built a healthcare exchange. They had hired the same company that built or one of the same companies that built the exchange for the government to build them their own private exchange internally. And they were shifting gears and going from providing health insurance to just giving their employees money and saying, go into the exchange and buy your own. And I thought to myself, oh, okay, that's going to be the tipping point. What's going to happen is that all these big companies are going to start doing that. And then after a little while, these big companies are going to say, wait a second, why are we running an exchange when the government runs an exchange too? Why don't we just persuade the government to let us just put the people in that exchange? I'm only telling this whole story, which I'm now being very long-winded to say. I'm just trying to think. I always try to think about the dynamics that'll make something shift. And I thought something would shift with the Affordable Care Act. It never did. And so my point is, what's going to make it shift with these major frontier models? And I can see it being customers who demand privacy are going to say, you cannot share our data with these frontier models. And that's going to necessitate me as a vendor to have to go out. That might be the tipping point for a lot of companies who are willing to take risk, but ultimately they're going to get their hand forced to bring these things in house.
So there you go. I think it's going to be, like you said, a combination of eventually the CFO will say, hey, tokens spend too much. And it will be some stakeholders, whether it's your own legal department, your own internal team, or your external customers are going to say, hey, I want guaranteed privacy of my
Mhm.
data. I want guaranteed protections of my data. And then what was your third one?
Well, my third one was the small language models.
Oh yeah, that there'll just be that there are versions where the models perform better when they're actually tuned to exactly what you want as opposed to
Right.
just sort of tuned on trained on the whole world. Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing about the middle one, the customers who want private data. How does that play with the fact that everyone's on the cloud? Not everyone, of course, but like, so you come to me and you say, okay, I don't want you to, you're my customer, and you come to me and say, I don't want you to use Anthropic or Gemini or anybody. You got to like run your own stuff. I'm like, okay, but I'm going to run that inside of AWS. So is that going to be okay with you?
I would think that's more likely to be okay with you than the, having the model.
I guess right. I guess AWS isn't training itself on the
exactly.
content of the
You're just
content
running
of
you're
those.
just running an EC2 instance. You're just running
Right.
you're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
running a pod. You don't, AWS doesn't know what's running on that pod, you know.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
I just think I really so I guess the other piece that I'm piling in on this is a combination of like AI backlash and like the big frontier models have not done a good job of like marketing themselves as being friendly actors, They like when the CEO's up there saying, "Oh, it's going to cause job loss," and "Oh, it's this massive
Yeah.
security problem." It's just like
Anthropic's done the best, but it's tough.
I feel like it's funny. I thought Anthropic had done the best, and they seem to be sort of like the good guys, but I definitely feel like they've fumbled this whole Fable thing in a way that has led me to not. to start to question them. The other thing I'm a little worried about, or I'm feeling, I guess, not really worried about, is I feel like they're kind of in boy who cried wolf mode, where they've been some of the loudest um, voices for like this stuff is really dangerous, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. What's the line? Methinks the lady does protest too much.
That's one line from the Bard, but there's the other line from Jurassic Park.
Give me that line.
We were so busy wondering if we could, we didn't think about if we should.
Yeah.
And so that's what I worry about the most is that people are so fired up about doing this stuff that we're letting genies out of a bottle that will never get back in.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's the thing that I would say, like, I don't buy that. I I'm not feeling that any of the frontier models are any better actors in that regard than any others, right? They're basically all acting in the same way.
They're just capitalists.
There you go. So that's my
Or
so
Ouroboros.
yeah. Anyway, but that's still my summary. My summary is, look, it's making my team so effective that it's not going anywhere. And so therefore, don't allow yourself to be just completely tied into a single vendor. And
Well,
the
that's true.
and the good news is that it looks like the open source open weight models are getting good enough. Like a year ago, you and I were talking about like, hey, is this stuff good enough to like write production code?
Yes.
That's like a done question. Like, of course it's good enough to write production code, right? And so now I'm just
Yes.
saying, like, guess what? The open source models, the open weight models are going to be good enough to write production code. And
Yeah.
so that game over.
Yeah. I gave a talk to my team today. I mean, I shouldn't say I gave a talk, but we had a meeting and I was talking about AI. And I said, I feel like there are three truths that we're adapting to right now. The first is that it's changing our jobs and changing our industry. The second is it's not going away. And the third is it does, in fact, write production grade software. And those are things that a year ago or year to 18 months ago were not true. And I think it is, at least they were not true to me.
Or they weren't,
And,
yeah, they weren't universally accepted as true.
but I think it is true. And, I left my team with this. Maybe this is a fun place to stop. I have this picture of myself with a floppy disk. A floppy disk, for those of you who don't know what that is,
Wait, 5 1/4 inch or 7.5 inch?
3.5. I never possessed a 7.5. I did possess five and many, many 5 1/4s for my Oregon trails and my Olympic games and all that kind of stuff. Never possessed a 7.5. I knew a guy though that did. And but I have this picture of myself with a 3.5-inch floppy disk. Somebody on my team said, "Why is Scott holding a picture of the save icon?" They were just giving me a hard time. Of Netscape Navigator 1.0.
Nice. That fit on a single floppy disk?
Oh, it probably was like five of them, to be honest with you. Let's
It
take a
had to
look.
be.
Actually happen to have that up here. Let's take a look. It's right on my computer somewhere. Um, I think it's just one. It says Netscape Navigator 1.0 for Windows. For installation instructions, read the README file included on this disk.
There you
So
go.
the point that I was making to my team today is, look, I get it. All this is kind of threatening and scary. I know people at both ends of the spectrum, a peer who, after 25 or 30 years in the industry, gave it up. Just said, I don't think I'm ready to go learn all this new stuff. And a young man who's a Reese's College graduate who wanted to be a computer programmer and said, I don't think I want to do it. I don't know if this is a career. I don't think this can be a career for me. I don't know if it'll really be here for a good solid 30, 40 years. And so I get the concern. But the reason I bring up the Netscape Navigator disk is I said to them, I feel like a huge asset in my career. I feel incredibly fortunate in my own career that just by the fact I was here first, and when I say here first, I started working with the internet professionally in 1995.
Yeah.
I mean, Netscape Navigator came out in 1994. Like, so just because I was the first one on the bus, I got to pick what seat I wanted to be in,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
we are all at the beginning of this AI thing. And I know that to the people on my team, I know you're all nervous about this. I'm nervous about it. Don't get me wrong. But we're here at the beginning. We get to shape this and lead it and figure out where it's going to go. And that is a massive gift
Yep.
for all of us in the next chapter of the software development story.
Love it. That's the way to land it. That's the way to land the plane, Scott. You just did it.
All right, Brad, what do we want these people to do?
Smash that subscribe button, rate and review.
And tell all your
All your
friends
friends.
about it,
Tell all your friends about it,
including your mom.
including your mom. Exactly.
All
All
right.
right.
See
Have
you
a good
next week,
one. See you
Brad.
next week.
Bye.
This episode of the How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was produced and edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.